Howdy, folks.
Hey.
It's Wednesday here on the Hockey Buzzcast. We are joined by our friends Russ and Anthony from the New Jersey, the tri-state area. Is that what we call it? Or I forgot.
Russ is in Jersey. I'm in Philly. So
it's
the Delaware Valley.
The Delaware Valley. That's that. There you go. And
I do bridge into the metro area, but I'm really Delaware Valley.
Yeah, and the Delaware Valley was devastated this morning, Anthony, by the
flea on your face.
by the news that
right now, look at him.
That the savior known as Manny Machado is not coming to Citizens Bank. No, but anyway,
that's for sure.
So Manny Machado, and please, it was the worst kept secret of. Oh, by the way, sports last night. If you did not want to watch the Major League All-Star game, ESPN was carrying the Johnsonville Cornhole Championship.
That's fantastic.
Let me get this straight. Johnsonville, a meat company, is sponsoring a cornhole. It's not like we have one whole dinner for a sporting competition.
Was it sponsored by Beavis and Butthead? Anyway, but at the All-Star game, Manny Machado was taking selfies on the field with Matt Kemp, who was apparently.
He doesn't already know he's getting traded already.
It was the worst kept secret in the world that he didn't know he was being traded to the Dodgers. And now it hasn't been formally announced, but everybody seems to know. Okay, but so everybody seems to know that it's going to happen. The speculation is it's the Dodgers. There's a 21-year-old outfielder prospect named Diaz.
The guy they were willing to go in all in on. And again, you got to remember with LA versus Philly is that LA with losing Seager, that was the one thing I kind of kept in the back of my head. You lose your starting shortstop,
right?
Trying to maintain things. This window for the Dodgers is not a long one right now. They have to go all in. They had to try to ensure things. Because the Phillies probably, this year is kind of a, so a bit of a surprise, certainly, that they're at where they're at. But at the same time, it's a situation where, again, I think they were willing to get him, but there was a maximum that they were going to go.
Well, like I was telling Russ before the show, it's like the Machado situation to Philadelphia is similar to like Tavares in Toronto. It's like, why would you trade for a guy that more than likely you're going to get in free agency anyway?
There's a chance. There's absolutely a chance in that respect. Russ, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, there is a big chance for that. But the thing is, the Philly radio thing was funny because like yesterday they're like, "Oh, it's so sad. Nobody wants to come here." And then Leonard this morning, and it's like, "Oh no!" And it's like, you're not going to get every top free agent in your market. It's not going to happen, or even every top superstar.
We know why this is, Russ, because the Eagles won the Super Bowl, so everybody automatically assumes everybody summer bugs to a lamp.
Yeah,
everybody's gonna. Oh, we're gonna go come to Philadelphia. Yeah. Of course. Why wouldn't they want to come here?
Yeah,
every Philly different.
But I did just write an article about Sixto Sanchez for another website, for a collectibles website, GTS. And so looking at him, watching video, looking at his numbers, looking what he is, he looks like a top of the rotation guy. Why am I trading him for a 1-year guy either? I think the Phillies did the right thing, to be honest.
And that was the same mentality that the Yankees had about Justice Sheffield. They think I don't know if he's going to be a top of the rotation starter, but they think he's going to be very good. And why do you want to give him up for a guy who probably isn't signing anywhere that he's getting traded to? I don't think Machado is getting signed by the Dodgers, and I think he's going to go to the free market and see what he can get.
Yeah,
but. Now, you mentioned Philly is the fact that they had a long-standing run starting from 07 through 11, where they basically where Phillies fans got used to the team emptying out for everybody under the sun. So the expectation now has been, well, that's what you go and do. These prospects aren't going to turn into anything. Hot newsflash, if you've noticed, quite a few of the players that are on the Phillies right now are the prospects that you've developed.
Yeah.
So it's very cute to say, oh, they're just prospects. They're probably not going to pan out. No, that's usually what the basis of a good franchise is going to be.
To me, it's the laziest of talk show jargon is when a host, he's waiting to come on the show. He's looking at research. He goes, how often do prospects make it? And it's like, yes, if you want to go with that thing or that argument, yes, the percentage is low, right? But when you're talking about trades like this, the percentage is a lot higher because now you're talking about a team's top 3 or 4 prospects, and most of the time those guys do make it.
Tell that to the Blue Jays about Noah Syndergaard and the R.A. Dickey deal. Okay, now switching to, and I know we'll bring it back to hockey.
I was mad that they traded Dickey, but then when I saw they got Syndergaard, I was like, I don't know a lot about him, but I kind of like this kid. All right, I'm going to pipe down now.
Now you mentioned Kawhi Leonard, and this is, the city of Toronto right now is sort of apoplectic that they traded DeMar DeRozan in a first round pick, and I think it was another player for
Jacob Poeltl, who I saw him play this year, was a pretty good player for Toronto.
Yeah, for Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard. And I'm not going to pretend to be an expert about the NBA because I'm not. But one thing I do recognize is that, and I got some pushback on this, and I don't think I'm wrong here. I know that the Raptors are owned by MLS and E, just like the Leafs. But if you don't think that they're trying to carve out their own market share in that town, it doesn't matter who the ownership is. It doesn't. That team needs to win. And with Tavares being signed in Toronto, I really think that Masai Ujiri, the general manager of the Raptors, it was incumbent upon him. He had a team that has choked or fallen short the last few years. They were never going to win in the East with against Boston or Philadelphia, even with LeBron leaving for the Lakers. And this was a calculated move to roll the dice to get Leonard to come to Toronto. Maybe you can get him to sign long term, and even if you don't, you have a chance to maybe win and get to the final this year. But I think it was to make the Raptors more relevant in a market where, I'm sorry, the Leafs are the top of the heap now, and I don't see it changing for the next decade.
I agree with you. Actually, I'm dumbfounded because I saw a tweet from Scott Wheeler. So since he's a hockey guy and I'm a hockey guy, I will rip him on the fact that he says DeMar DeRozan was the greatest players in Raptor history. Vince Carter put him on the map. Listen, Vince Carter is a better player than DeMar DeRozan. I'm sorry. DeMar DeRozan's a really good player, though, and I actually did get a chance to interview him once at an event, and I could tell this guy was going to be a good player. Like, I don't watch the NBA. I don't. But this is a trade they had to make. This is a trade where Mike said when you have more than one team in town, regardless if it's owned by the same group or not, they have to keep up with the Joneses to some degree. You're all fighting over ticket sales and dollars and everything else. It's a big deal. But please don't tell me he was better than Vince Carter. I don't want to hear it.
Well, you know what the thing is that he signed the long-term contract there. He was loved in Toronto. They didn't win with him. They weren't going to win with him. He had 3 years left. I think it was a little over $80 million. So he's making $26, $27 million a year. This was a move. Kawhi Leonard, everybody agrees, is a better player. Now, if he decides to sit out or if he continues to say, I'm not going to play, then it's a disaster. But if he plays at least the 1 year, they have a chance to make the final. I don't think they'll beat the Lakers or they'll beat Golden State, whoever comes out of the West, but they have a chance to get to the finals. And that's the type of move you have to make. And after that, it might be rebuild time for the Raptors, just like it's rebuild time for the Blue Jays. And I'm sorry, the 800-pound gorilla in Toronto for the next decade is the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Look, rebuild time for all teams is quicker than you want it to be. A good example is a couple of years ago, I was at Citizens Bank Park, last game of the year, and the Mets beat the Phillies, and they clinched a one-game playoff. They haven't made the playoffs since. They may not make the playoffs for the next couple of years. This is what happens in sports. You go on a little mini run. Maybe you make it to the World Series like the Mets did. Maybe you have a couple other playoff appearances. Then all of a sudden the team falls off. You got to retool again, and that's normal. We see this in every sport now.
And also with the Raptors, it's also double meaning here in the fact that they wanted to make sure, obviously, that the Celtics did not get him as well. I think that's a factor as well. And he gives them the opportunity that they know the Celtics are the main target that they have to beat now. This gives them even more of a fighting chance in this case.
Yeah. Okay, we'll start this show now.
We should ask Jan. He did come to my book signing last night wearing a Knicks hat. So I would have to say a Knicks fan may have an opinion on your topic, Mike. So throw it out to Jan too.
Okay. Well, I mean, the Kawhi Leonard thing. I mean, we know Kawhi Leonard's not going to the Knicks. I mean, everybody knows that Kawhi Leonard is going to go to the Lakers, but the Knicks are in a similar position. Like, more than likely, Kyrie Irving is coming to the Knicks next year. But if you're in the position of Toronto, where you've been sort of good to mediocre, where you were first in the Eastern Conference and then you get destroyed by LeBron. And you know that you're not as good as the Celtics or the 76ers, I think you have to make the DeRozan for Leonard deal. It makes a lot of sense.
So the viewpoint is, I think, and I've seen a couple places, is they felt that they were tapped out with Lowry and DeRozan as the backbone of that team. And they needed a change in order to kind of change the mindset a little bit. Now, you could argue whether or not they should have fired Dwayne Casey. That was a knee-jerk reaction to an absolute collapse in the playoffs, discounting everything he had done the last 4 or 5 years as their coach. But despite that happening, obviously they never thought that Kawhi would be available based upon all the conversations that's been going on, that everybody thought he'd end up on the Lakers if he wasn't staying with the Spurs. So Raptors are changing kind of the mindset, changing the guys who are the leaders on that team. Now, granted, none of us really know how healthy Kawhi is. We have all the talk about the Spurs last year as to why he sat out and whether he truly was fully healthy or wasn't truly fully healthy, and who was the reason why he sat out. But if he is healthy, you got a lockdown two guard in that division who can match up defensively. The big key, again, obviously Cleveland is not the same anymore. You have Boston especially getting Kyrie and Gordon Hayward back. It wouldn't shock me to see Kawhi matched up against Irving periodically, just because I don't think Lowry can handle him physically. I think he's just too big for him, Irving. But unless they find somebody that can match up with Jason Tatum, they're not getting past Boston in the next round, because Tatum is the X factor on that team. And if Boston had gone to him more in Game 7, you would have seen a Boston Warriors finals as opposed to a Golden State against the Cleveland finals. And
some people think that the worst case scenario for the Raptors is that this could be a Mike Hoffman situation, where if Leonard will not play for them, then they flip him to the Lakers and get the young prospects that the Lakers were offering to the Spurs. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know if that's the case.
It could happen. That league, weird things happen like that.
Yeah. All right, let's get started here. Anthony, you follow me. Jan, you follow Anthony. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, July 18th, 2018.
I'm Anthony Majoni from Sunrise Philly Magazine.
I'm Jan Levine.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Start with this. I saw this article in Forbes magazine yesterday and figured it was good to bring this up, and a little humorous. Andrew Barroway, the owner of the Arizona Coyotes, is looking to sell a minority stake in the Coyotes, 49%. So he wants to keep majority control, and apparently he is asking for a $500 million, more $500 would probably be closer, but $500 million valuation for that 49%. Now, Russ, I mean, we've talked about the Coyotes ad nauseum, the state of that franchise. I think on the ice, there is some reason for optimism. The signing of Ekman-Larsson, the re-upping of Yarmulson, the young group that they have. I think there's a lot of talent there. But the Glendale move was a disaster. They averaged more than 3,000 less season tickets in Glendale than they did in their old building. And every couple of years, this chaos comes up. So I think this is hilarious, because I don't think he's going to be able to sell 49%. I think he's going to have to sell the whole thing, and I think he's going to eventually have to, or that franchise is eventually going to move.
Yeah, clearly he even said he's doing this to try and eliminate some debt. I get that. That would be a smart move.
Yeah, $250 million.
So, like, X amount, I'm going to try and do this, but yeah, I don't think he'll be successful.
Jan, what do you think of this situation?
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's funny, Arrows jersey posted there.
But they don't have an arena. That's the problem there. They haven't built one yet.
No. The Rockets arena is
NHL ready, and the owner in Houston will be more than willing to help out in terms of bringing it.
Is that NHL ready like the Barclays? I kind of question that.
No, it doesn't have,
that the scoreboard is over the wrong line. Okay,
it doesn't have PVC piping. So, but Anthony, what do you think of this?
Here we go again, is what I think.
Yeah.
The Coyotes. It just seems like the league is continuing to prolong the inevitable with it, especially now that they've got a successful franchise in the desert in Vegas. If you need one of those a Southwest franchise, it's there. You put one in place now. It was a little, yeah. So for me, we are continuing to go through this vicious cycle over and over again with the Coyotes, and it's a shame because, again, I think they've made some moves this offseason on the ice, as you said, that is promising. But you're going to sell an investor on that possibility, as Russ just stated, with no arena available, or not arena available, but no arena that you own.
Well, that's the heart of the problem, because we know that the Arizona State situation that fell apart. There's been a lot of talk about them building a building in concert with the Phoenix Suns. That's not happening. There was talk of a building in Scottsdale where most of the money is, and a lot of people think that if it was on one side of Phoenix, like in the Scottsdale area, and I've been to that area a few times because I have friends who live there. To go to Glendale, if you're living in Scottsdale, is basically going through the city of Phoenix at rush hour. It's ridiculous. So, and there really is no like rapid transit type of non-car driving situation there. So I don't think it would work. So really, they need their own build. They need a building for revenue, and they don't want to share it with anybody. So, the only thing is right now is to continue to.
Which makes no sense logistically. It really does. And
I just looked it up, guys, and my cousins live in Houston. The Toyota Center is not really set up for hockey. It's not. And their lease is, I guess, about to expire. They don't have a new place being built yet, because I specifically asked about that when I was down there. There's nothing new being built, and there's nobody currently trying to lure a team. So even if you can get a team there, there's no place to play yet.
Well, the Rockets owner came out about 4 or 5 months ago, said he was interested in bringing the NHL to Houston.
Yeah, but in the Toyota Center that they're in, or a new place?
Yeah, I don't.
A new place.
I had read something that said that rink was NHL capable. That was, maybe that meant NHL size, and they would have to.
The question, as Rush just stated, is it? I don't know if it may be in as extreme a circumstances as Barclays, but it might not necessarily be optimal.
Right.
Right. But is Arizona optimal right now, and is Houston a more viable solution? Again, I don't know. I mean, they've gone through, as you said, Anthony, so much rigmarole with this place already. Just make a decision one way or the other. Either it is a viable option, and you're going to work with the state government to try to build an arena and make it a place that's a long-term option, or it's not, and you're just prolonging the agony, and it's basically creating a maelstrom around this team that never seems to end.
And the other situation that if you're talking about a team that's going to move, obviously, is the Videotron Center in Quebec City. But I continue to think that is a situation set up like Winnipeg for a franchise transfer, but transferring from the west to the east. That's the problem. You're going to have an imbalance. Right now it's 16-15. Then it would be 17-4. You'd have to have a team move from the east to the west, and I don't think you're going to get Detroit or Columbus to volunteer to move to the Western Conference. So, I mean, I'm not sure how that would work, but I mean, Quebec City is there and waiting if a team needs a city.
So, looking back on articles from like November 2017. That owner did throw it out there, and there is discussion about what they would do with seats and everything. So it doesn't sound like it's a perfect NHL place. It sounds like, we probably could play hockey here, but like I don't know. I don't know if Arizona would move directly there. I think the NHL would want to explore that place first, make sure they play games in it first, like preseason games. Like I don't think they would just move a team there.
Unless they move to Seattle. Now, the thing is, though, is that
Seattle, we're still waiting. It's going to be another year.
They want the expansion fees there.
They want the $650 million.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about some signings. There's a lot of stuff going on right now with, arbitration hearings, and that's, not exactly, juicy and exciting, but there are some situations that I think, I think it will have a lot of effect on particular teams. Now, Russ, we were talking before the show, a couple signings that one of you thought was a pretty good value was Chris Tierney with the San Jose Sharks, 2-year deal at a slightly under $3 million per.
Yeah, Chris Tierney is a guy that I've been watching pretty closely for a while because he was one of these guys that, was a second-round pick. He had a pretty good junior career, but he just kept seemingly getting better as the years went on. He was just a guy that, like, every time I would talk to him, watch him, he'd be a little stronger, a little faster. And because even when he started out in the AHL, he wasn't great. And even his first NHL season, 20 points. And I was like, all right, well, let's see. And then he 23 points. And then last year he really did sort of break it open with 40 points and 17 goals. And it's really a product of hard work and training. Like, this is a guy that, even though he's 24, like, he's just hitting his stride now at 24, which, again, this is why, like, in the prospect business, we always say if the draft were later and guys had a little bit more time to develop, you would get a better prospect at, like, the age of 22 than you do at the age of, like, 18, because, again, some guys take to 24, 25, and usually they're on their second or more NHL team by then. But, the Sharks are really patient, and I think they've got good value here because he could definitely score 20 goals in the league. He could definitely get 40, 45 points. And for just under $3 million, to me, that's a really good signing.
One of the other signings, Jan, was Jimmy Vesey. He signs a 2-year deal. The AAV was around $2.4 million. Now, I'm a fan of VC. I know that there's been some critics, especially people in Buffalo, who feel jilted that he didn't sign with the Sabres, that he is underachieved. I mean, he's been basically a third liner with the Rangers, and he scored 16, 17 goals. I'll take that. He's a good young player.
Yeah, I think expectations were heightened because of the way he came into the league, and I think a lot of people viewed him as maybe a second-line winger, as opposed to really where he fits, as you said, on the third line. And to me, I wrote my blog yesterday, and I'll self-pat myself. I got pretty close. I said I thought the range would probably be either somewhere from 1.85 to about 2.25, and it came in about 2.275 for the 2 years, 2.2 in year one, 2.35 in year two. So, in my opinion, a fair contract for what he is. Not a big surprise in terms of the dollars. I thought, maybe a tick lower might be what it came in, but he's probably one of those guys who I think will get a new start in under David Quinn, probably a better system for him. One of the things that we've talked about is that we've wanted him to use his physical presence a bit more. He shies away from that, something he needs to do a bit more on the ice. So I think he's going to have that opportunity, probably skating on the third line there. And at that amount of money, I think it's a reasonable contract in terms of what he got.
Yeah, I really like the deal. I think BC is one of those guys that, again, you can't always look at the stat sheet for him. Every year he's scoring 16, 17 goals. That's good. But he's also pretty greasy. He also gets in guys' faces. He sticks up for teammates. He definitely gets some guys off their game. They'll chase him around. Like, all those things are good. And he's never going to be a superstar, right? But I think under Quinn, Jan's right. I think he'll do a little more. Like, last year he had 83 hits and he had 34 blocks. That's pretty good. Could he do better with giveaways, takeaways? Yeah. And I think that's something that Quinn will improve upon with him, and maybe he'll get a few more goals as a result. But I think so many teams need these guys, the Tierneys, the VCs. You need these kinds of guys because, again, if you're going to spend 7, 8, 10 million on the upper echelon guys, you've got to have these middle guys. This is the secondary scoring we're always talking about with teams. And, yeah, smart for the Rangers to keep him in the fold. Now, for the Rangers, unfortunately, he'll have to be a little more than secondary scoring because I think the scoring is going to be a little light this year.
Yeah, I think he's probably going to end up being in the top 6 now. I think he's going to move up there. Now, Anthony, the other one that I saw, and I know there's been a lot of critics about the Islanders. I do think that getting Ryan Pulock signed for 2 years at $2 million is really good because he's got that blast of a shot. He got a howitzer. I think he was underutilized the last couple of years. I think he's ready to be, I don't know about a top 4 but he's got the offensive ability to be a top 4 defenseman. So I think that's a good signing.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some need for defensive refinement in his game, but he was definitely, the year that he was drafted from Philadelphia, just looking from Philadelphia's perspective, Pulak was like number 2 on my list when their pick came up.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was an absolutely perfect fit for what Philadelphia was looking for back in 2012 before they began to build up with the current crop of defensemen that they have. Love Pulak's shot. He's he's got his shot's frightening. It's not quite Shea Weber, but it's got some good mustard on it, no question. So I thought value-wise, certainly as a bridge style contract, it's a good deal, I think, for the Islanders, and I think he's going to be getting more of a bite this year.
Yeah, now, sorry. You look at it, Mike. I mean, he had 10 goals. 5 of them were even strength. He definitely could get more on the power play, and he'll definitely get more opportunity this year to get him on the power play because you've lost Tavares on the power play. Pulak should be at the point banging away with his shot. You also look at 113 hits. People forget he's got a physical side to his game. So even if he is a third-pairing D-man but a top-line power play guy, and he'll also hit you, that's fine. I mean, that's the hope for him, Mike. If he says second power play, it's fine too.
Yeah, I was going to say second power play because they got Letty, and Letty will be the first.
No, I know. I mean, I'm saying in the future.
Yes, watching Pulak again, it's for him to become complete. Needs a bit more defensive refinement. I mean, the physical aspect is great. It's 2/3 of the battle, certainly with the offensive game. But I think there's times when he also chases hits, and that causes him to have blow coverage, and that's the thing that prevents him from being a complete NHL defenseman.
Yeah, I like the sign. I mean, again, they finally gave him a realistic shot last year after him kind of bouncing up and down the last couple of years, and showed he's definitely one of those guys that they can hopefully build around for the future. And in my opinion, 2 years at $2 million is actually probably even more of a steal for the team than it is for the player. Him coming off his ELC, so you compare and contrast what the Islanders have done on their other contracts. This is one that I think they kind of won in terms of the kind of deal that they gave Pulak on.
The Islanders have specialized.
Sorry, Mike. They just got a really good assistant coach too, in John Gruden, who was the Hamilton Bulldogs head coach, and whose son was drafted this year. This guy's a really good coach. To get him as an assistant, it's great. I mean, so they're assembling a world-class coaching and management team. Now they just need players.
Well,
yeah, we're fine.
And it hasn't come to fruition yet, and it should have been able to since he had a non-compete until July 15th. But there was some speculation last week that Mark Hunter was going to join the Islanders organization. It hasn't happened yet, but if it does, then like I said, I think that what that will follow there is probably a mass exodus of some Leaf scouts, guys who were loyalists to Hunter. But that would improve the strength of that organization exponentially. But let's talk about the restricted free agents. We'll play a little game here like we've been doing. There are number of players who are either up for arbitration hearings in the next couple weeks, or RFAs who are coming off their entry level deals. I'll list like 7 or 8 of them, some of the prominent guys, and we'll sort of like play general manager here and what you think, what you would offer them and what you think they'll actually get. So I'll like say, for example, we'll use Jacob Trouba as the first example. Now Trouba, the numbers came out this morning. The Winnipeg Jets offered him in arbitration $4 million. Trouba and his agent asked for $7 million. So there's you can drive a Mack truck through the gap on that one. And I think that this is tailored to get a long-term deal here. If it was going to be like a 1 or 2 year bridge deal, then I think the figures would be closer together. But I think what they're trying to do is get something sort of in the middle to get a 6 or 7 year deal locked up here. But I'll just go first here. I think a long-term deal is going to get done. I don't think it's going to be the 1 or 2 year deal, and I don't see Trouba signing for less than $6 million a year. Russ,
go ahead, Russ.
Go ahead.
So I think it'll be one of those deals where it's like 2 years at like $5.75 million per. That's what I think it'll be.
So you think he's setting up to go UFA?
Yes.
Okay. So you think
negotiated? It didn't work out, and so now this is the next step in that process.
I mean, that's awful pricey for a bridge deal, though.
Yeah, but again, you go look at what he does. He covers the top guys. He plays hard minutes. Like, it's not going to be very hard to show an arbitrator that this guy is one of the better guys on the team.
Okay, Jan, do you think it's going to be bridge or do you think it's going to be a long-term deal?
I mean, I think if I'm Winnipeg, I'm looking for a long-term deal to try to sign him to a long-term deal. I think if it gets to 1 or 2 years, it'd be interesting. It's probably going to be Trouba requesting that in the arbitration and whether or not the team acquiesces to it, where he would become a UFA. I mean, the question is how much acrimony has built up over the past, and is that acrimony resolvable, or is it something that they can't move past? And I think they're kind of looking, I think now with the changes they've made and the strides they made, and also signing Hellebuck to a long-term deal, that they would want to lock him up to a long-term deal, but especially if they could save a little bit on the back end, because that Blake Wheeler coming up in another year, they have to deal with. So I think the team would want him long-term. Trouba, it all depends on how much the pull for him to maybe go to Detroit that's been rumored and whether or not he's going to be willing to sign the long-term deal. But in terms of a short-term deal, I think it's going to be kind of in what Russ kind of laid out, 2 years in the 5.5 range is probably what I think is going to happen on a shorter deal. 6 years, I think you're looking at about 6 to 7, 6.5, maybe even $7 million a year, somewhere slightly lower than what he asked for in arbitration.
Anthony.
I think there's been enough acrimony in the past between Trouba and the Jets that at this point, while the Jets want to, I agree that the Jets want to get a deal done long term. I'm 100% on board necessarily thinking that Trouba is going to be. I think Russ's range was fairly close. To what I was thinking there. I definitely think it was going to be $6 million. Only on a long term deal do I see it north of $6 million. So I'm going to say couple years, 5.75 to 5.8.
Yeah, and I didn't include what I thought. If it's a 2-year bridge deal, I think it's going to be under 5 because I don't think they're going to give him big money. Basically, he's subject to what they want to pay him if it's a bridge deal. He's getting his freedom if they give him a bridge deal. So I don't think he can really demand, the type of money that like Tobias Enstrom was getting paid or Tyler Myers is getting paid if he's going to walk at age of 26, whatever. I think he's 24. He's 24 now, so he would walk as 26. So this will be interesting, because the hearing is this weekend, I believe. It's the 20th. So if in the few days after, we'll probably find out either the award or we'll find out of some compromise or some extension. But okay,
it's not like we talk about breaking news for every ELC that's signed, right? But yeah. I think this one's interesting because the Sharks signed Ryan Merkley to his ELC, and Wilson's high on him. And to me, this is like we think we could fix you kind of pick. And if they fix him, boy, did they get something good. But if they don't fix them, then they might look back at this years later and say, all right, look, we gave it a shot. It didn't work out. But I think it's really interesting the way it's sort of gone. And I think Merkley's sort of lucky that we are living in an age where you have to have a couple of offensive defensemen in your system or guys you perceive that can do it because you don't want to be on the free agent market trying to get these kinds of guys.
No, because you always end up paying. I still do not know how Mike Green got $5.3 million. I don't. Okay, Detroit.
I can. I absolutely can. What time of year is it, Mike?
Oh, I know. And Anthony, and I will continue to say this, and I know that there have been some Leaf-related websites who have said, stop trying to trade Jake Gardiner. Well, okay, get ready to pay Jake Gardiner $7 million as a pending UFA if you want to re-sign him. And the Leafs cannot do that. So that's why I'm an advocate of trading Jake Gardiner, or if worse comes to worse, just letting him walk, because you cannot afford to sign Marner, Nylander, Matthews, have Tavares at $11 million, and sign Jake Gardiner for more than $6, probably close to $7 million if he puts up another 50 points.
Mike, let's play Remember When the Dallas Stars back in, it looks like it was 13, 14, 14, 15, signed Sergei Gonchar, who was 100 back then, to 2 years, $10 million.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's true. Okay, Mark Stone, he's up for he has an arbitration hearing in the next week or so. 26 years old, coming off of a 62-point season. I believe he's 1 year away from being a UFA, so you would think that the Senators would want to get him locked up on a long-term deal, but this is the Senators we're talking about. So, and we don't know whether Stone wants to get out of Dodge or whether he is interested in staying there long term. Now, if it's a 1 year, I think he gets probably $5.5 to $6 million. If it's a long term deal, I think he's getting probably 7.5. Thoughts, Russ?
Yeah, I think he will get something like 7.2 for 5 or 6 years. I think that's because they're gonna have to sign somebody, and we don't know if Duchesne's staying. We're pretty sure Carlson's gone, so a lot of that salary's gone. And so somebody's going to have to make it, and Stone will be the beneficiary, I think.
Which means that Stone will get what Bobby Ryan is getting right now once they trade Bobby Ryan someplace else.
But we'll get a lot more points as a result.
Right. He won't have a broken finger every 5 seconds. Jan, one bridge deal or 1 year deal or long-term extension, and give me your parameters.
Well, I think a 1 year deal takes him, I think, to UFA status, if I'm not mistaken, right? So I think if it's 1 year, then it's going to be 6.25 mil, and Ottawa is going to be looking to trade him in about 30 seconds after he signs that contract.
Yeah.
Longer term deal, I think they're going to go 6 years and about 7.4 mil average on the 6 years. Slightly higher than Ryan. I'm also factoring in the rise in the cap and the percentage of the cap usage associated with it. And given that Stone is going to be the guy you're going to kind of have to build around based upon what's currently on that roster, coupled with whatever you get for Carlson if they finally deal Carlson. But I think if he wants to stay, he'll get the long-term deal. And if not, it'll be the 1 year deal, and he'll be talked about all year in terms of what's going to happen in terms of trading.
Yeah, he'll be a rental in late February. Anthony, what do you think?
It's a long-term deal. I'm going to go 7. I'm going to say about 7 years. North, obviously, the JVR contract. JVR was at 5 at 35, so it was $7 million cap hit. So I'm going to say 7 years at around 44 to 45 mil total. So that takes him obviously up the ladder there a bit. Well, let me see, on 45. Hold on.
That would be less. That'd be less than 7.
6 then. 6 years. Sorry, 6 years then.
Okay. Yeah. So you say 7.25, something like that.
Yeah, something in that range. 7.25. I think that would be probably what he gets. He has to be north. He has to be north of what JVR is getting.
Right.
In that respect, about a year more.
Okay. Throw a defenseman in here. How about Matt Dumba? Now, okay, coming off a 50-point season, 49 points to be exact, 14 goals, 35 assists in 81 games, had signed a bridge deal 2 years, was making 2.55. We're talking 2 years. I'm just double checking here. 2 years away from unrestricted free agency. So, and I believe he is arbitration eligible as well. So I'll go first here. I think they want to get him long term, and if they do, they're probably going to have to trade Jared Spurgeon because they can't afford to sign Dumba. Spurgeon's under contract for another 2 years at a little over $5 million. I think that if they sign Dumba long term, 6-7 years, it's going to be for that 5.1, 5.2 figure. They'll basically just replace Dumba's contract with Spurgeon. That's what I think they'll do. Anthony, you go first.
Yeah, I'm going to say maybe it's a little north of that, Mike. Maybe go to about 5. If they do replace it, it's going to be I agree. It's going to be one or the other. It'll be either. And I think over long term, considering Spurgeon's injury, has had injury history too. Injury certainly this season got dinged up quite a bit. I think, that'll probably be about right. I'm gonna say about 5.5 for him on a deal. Now, what was how many years did you have on your deal again?
I basically say probably 6. I'd say 6.
About that, 6 years. That sounds about
right. Jan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think. Well, first they also have to re-sign Jason Zucker, so that's the other one I'm sure we'll get to, and he's going to cost a pretty penny as well. So signing both of them, even if we're talking bridge deals, is going to be challenging for them to stay under the cap right now because they have a little under $10 million in cap room, and both of those guys are going to suck up just about all that $10 million. So with Dumba, you can't sign him for 2 years and take the chance he's going to become an unrestricted free agent afterwards. So we're either looking at a 1 year deal, probably in about the 4.75 to 5 mil range, maybe in that range. Longer term deal, I think you're also going for a 5 or 6 year deal. Presuming you believe the growth he finally showed last year. I mean, everybody's been waiting for Dumba to take that next step. He finally kind of did that last year. I think it's going to be north of Spurgeon in the 5.5 range for 5 or 6 years.
Russ, let me pose to you a question. Do you think that Paul Fenton will roll the dice on both Dumba and Zucker?
No.
And sign him to – well, no. Just listen to my theory here.
Yeah.
Sign him to bridge deals, hoping that in the next 2 years that Parise and Suter retire so they can clear the cap space and sign them to long-term deals. Because otherwise, I don't see how they sign both of them to the money that they deserve and will get on the open market.
I mean, look, I think they'll figure those things out, and I'm not worried about that part. Fenton's really good at that. Fenton's also good at signing guys long-term at a reasonable rate. And I think they're going to get Dumba at 8 years and around 5.5, because I think at the end of the day,
spread out the hit.
Yeah. Right. Because first thing is you spread out the hit. The second thing is with the aging part of that defense and Suter and everything else, you don't know what year he's going to end up going LTIR, because he certainly seems like he's heading that way. He's your number one defenseman. Even for some reason, if he falls out of favor with your team, teams will line up to get a guy like that in a couple of years. Even at 5.5, it'll be a bargain with his skills.
Yeah. Next one is Tom Wilson. Now, there was a report out of Washington that said that they're working on a deal that would be, let's see, two sides have explored something north of 4 years, but nothing is done or close. So I'll skirt whether it's going to be a bridge deal and assume that they're going to get him locked up long term, recognizing the effect that he had on the team in their cup run. Now, he only had 14 goals last year, and really the last couple of years has the offensive side of his game really picked up. He's a bull in a china shop. He's a power forward. I think if it's a 5 or 6 year deal, I don't think you're talking. I think you're talking $5 million. I don't think you're talking. I think he's got limitations, and I don't think. I think he can score 20 goals. I don't think he's ever going to be a 30-goal scorer, and I think it's going to be a sort of long-term security type of thing. And $5 million, I think, is a reasonable figure. Russ, what do you think?
I'm going to go with the 4.75 for 4 years. I think that's what they'll look at, because I think they'll. Look, he plays hard. We don't know what's going to happen to him down the road with all the shots that he's giving and taking. His speed's good right now. Yeah. Big guy though, even though he's a great athlete, and I really stick by that. We don't know, so I don't know if they'll go any more than 4. I think I'd be surprised if they did.
So you think they're leery of like a Milan Lucic situation where he's a power forward guy, and if he loses a step, and he's
winning the cup is great, having intangibles is great. But when you come to the table and you have to sort of quantify it into dollars, some of those things go out the window.
Anthony?
Yeah, for me, in a lot of ways, it's the same principles what the Flyers are dealing with Wayne Simmons. Obviously, Simmons has a much greater resume in terms of his offensive game, but style of play is similar in terms of the two of them being ultra physical players. That's a huge part of their game. And one of the reasons why I think that's why the Capitals right now are kind of hung up here. I wouldn't be too surprised they have the cap. They both know the cap hit. It's a case of how long the Caps are willing to go on the deal in this case. So I think it's like a mini Simmons situation where they just have to figure out what the figure will be. So I'm going to say 4 years if they come to an agreement here. 4 years, and I'm willing to go, just almost as a reward in terms of some ways. I'm willing to go 4 years, $20 million, $5 million cap hit.
Okay, Jan.
So
I mean, first, are we escrowing for the number of suspensions he has to have so you can put money away?
No, we're not.
Damn it! I wish I had the rim shot.
The opposite of a loyalty bonus. Sorry.
Yeah. So
playing the cat skills.
I like it though.
Try the brisket.
But no, I mean, again, Wilson's 24. I mean, clearly he's shown both sides of the equation in the same game at times last year, right? You have the good and the bad of him. I think he gets rewarded. I think he gets a 4-year deal. I'm going to say in about the $4.5 million range seems to be reasonable. He's not. You hope there's a bit more offensive upside there. You saw some signs of it last season. Maybe he gets to that 20, 22 goal mark. But he is only 24. I don't think he's going to wear down that quickly. I think if you go beyond that, you're going to start seeing some degradation maybe the last year or so, which is why probably 4 years is probably fair. Probably in the 4.5 range probably makes sense also for them.
Okay. Couple more. One close to you guys, Brady Shea. Now he's coming off his ELC. 2 years where he's played over 80 games. Last year he scored 25 points. I think he's a really good young defenseman, and there is a benefit with teams getting those young defensemen locked up long term rather than now he could go the bridge route. They could go the bridge route, and you could reap the rewards if he's puts up decent numbers, but you also risk a PK Subban type of situation where you sign the bridge, he has one big boom year, and all of a sudden you're paying him way more than you thought or way more than you wanted. I think that if worst comes to worst, they'll settle on the bridge deal, but I think the Rangers will want to get him locked up, and I'll say 7 years at probably 4.8. Jan, what do you think?
So I wrote about all 4 of the Rangers free agents yesterday before VC signed, and I mean my view on this, and I can go with the big poppy and pay the man, like you said, for Jacob deGrom. My view on this is, look, Shea definitely regressed last year, but it's one of the things I've written substantially that defenseman growth is not linear. Just because you had one good year doesn't mean you're going to have another good year the year after, and he definitely struggled last season. I think expectations were high. I think usage pattern wasn't particularly great. We played very well with Brendan Smith when he came over the year before, and last year Smith struggled, which didn't help. We saw from what Carolina did with Jakob Slavin, Brett Pesce, in terms of the type of deals they have to sign each one of them to. My view is the Rangers should go similar to what they did for Ryan McDonough. When McDonough was coming off his first contract, and even though the upside was probably a bit greater, they gave him a 6-year deal at the time with $4.7 million per year. My view is sign the guy for 6 years, lock him up as your future number 1 or 2 defenseman, probably more of a number 2. Somewhere about $4.85 million a year for 6 years is reasonable to me in terms of a contract based upon the expectations. Don't mess around. Don't go bridge routes unless you really have substantial questions as to what he's going to be. But my view is lock him up for 6 years at about $4.85 million seems to be reasonable.
And if you sign him for 6 years, you're signing him to age 30. Russ.
Yep. Yeah, Jan's really stingy. I'll go 6 years, $30 million for a lot of the same reason.
Ooh, that $150K a year is making the big difference in the NHL.
I'll take it. Give it to me.
I didn't say you. I said the NHL.
It's all about appearances.
It's cap usage.
I'm here to say $5 million.
Show me the money.
Not 4.8. 5.
Okay, Rod Tidwell over there.
I am wearing red.
Okay, Anthony, what do you think?
I think actually I'll go along the lines of what Russ is saying. I think they need to go long term on Shea. I would be in the $5 million range for him. Yeah.
Okay, and I think another guy that we're not talking about, but Brandon Montour with Anaheim, I think is going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
Anaheim, they traded Vatanen because they knew that they were going to sign Montour long term, and I think they're going to do the same thing 6-7 years around $5 million. It makes perfect sense. The last one is Dylan Larkin. Now the thing with him is he's coming off the ELC. He had one great year, followed by a year, not a great year. So I mean, I think he's a top line player. I think he's a first, second line guy. I think he's really good. I don't know if he's a winger or a center. I think he's a center, but they've used him on the wing. It's a similar situation to William Nylander in Toronto. They're both Larkin's 21, Nylander's 22. Nylander's put up 2 61-point years, whereas Larkin put up one good and, like I said, one sort of subpar. I think with a guy like Zetterberg leaving, that they're going to spend the money on Larkin. So I'm going to say 7 years at 5.75.
Since I'm wearing red, I'll go first. Because it's a Red Wings.
Let's make it 6 years, because 7 years probably would go over $6 million. So 6.
Yeah. I was going to say 6 on Larkin. 5.5, 5.5, 5.75, somewhere in that range. We'll call it. We'll say 5.6.
Okay. Jan.
I'll go. I mean, I'm in a similar vein. I'm 6 years, 5.7. I'll go 5.775 just to go Prices Right rules here. And be slightly higher.
5.751.
I'll go 5. I'll go 6 years, 5.75. I think you saw from Larkin more what you kind of expect out of him, and he's clearly the guy they're going to build around there to be. I think first he'll probably be their future captain. Clearly the guy that's going to lead them moving forward. Similar thing. Lock him up now. You're probably overpaying a bit now, but you're taking advantage of down the road, depending on what happens with the cap. If the cap keeps rising a little bit, you're going to get the benefit of having a rising cap in the future.
It's all about having the confidence in the player to be good down the line. And if you may overpay them a little bit now, but if you bridge them and they end up being what you think they're going to be, then you're actually saving yourself money, because if you wait 2 years, you pay him 3.5 on a 2-year bridge deal, and he scores 80 points, then you're paying him $7.5 million on a 6.
We also know, Mike, at the same time, they get 2-3 years in the deal and he really emerges. This is just like a 5-year deal, be just like a really long bridge. It's the golden bridges. So in this circumstance, you just probably negotiate when you get into year 3 if he's really on that upward ascension.
Russ, what do you think?
8 years, $48 million. He's there. He is their future captain. He had 63 points on an awful team. Awful team.
Yep. Yeah, and if you go the max and you give him a little extra, I mean, you're buying well, on an 8-year deal, you're buying 4 unrestricted years.
And that's what I want.
Yep, and that gives you stability, and we know that Zetterberg is going to leave within the next year or two. So they need that stability there. Okay. Good show, guys.
One more thing, Mike, brought up by the chat room. There is a really good right-hand shot defenseman going into the last year of his deal, and there doesn't seem to be any contract negotiations. Ryan Ellis.
Well, there is negotiations, but I think I
don't see anything. Do you see anything?
No, there's been no progress. But and that's the thing. It's like right-hand shot defenseman. If Carlson signs the long-term deal, and we didn't talk Carlson at all today, so I just mentioned his name.
It was a good day.
It was a good day.
Now you mentioned him.
Now you mentioned it. It's over now. It's a bad day.
William
Carlson. I meant William Carlson.
William Carlson. If Erik Karlsson doesn't sign the long-term deal, then obviously he's the number 1 right-hand shot in next year's free agent class. But if he does, then it's Ellis. And I mean, I wonder if the questions about his size, I mean, they seem to fall by the wayside now because he's played so well the last few years with Nashville. But when it comes to spending big money in free agency, I'm wondering whether teams will say, I can't see myself paying $6.5 million a year on a guy who's 5'9".
I'll be surprised if that's the argument. I don't think that'll be the argument, but I don't know if – see, the thing is, I just don't know if Nashville will be able to come to terms with him. That's the whole thing.
Well, I mean, they do have money coming off the books with Rene's contract expiring. That's $7 million. Now they have to replace him. They signed your boy UC Saros for $1.5 million.
All right.
A ridiculous deal, by the way.
Yeah. So if they do believe that UC Saros is their future number 1, then they got a number 1 for 5 times less than their current number 1. I don't know if they believe. I'm
not buying the future number 1.
Okay. I mean, I neither do I, but I'm just saying if they wanted to go that way in order to sign Ellis to a long-term deal, that might be the way to go.
I think that's like back in the day if you bought a pair of Pro Keds hoping you were getting Adidas.
Okay. I remember what he's talking about. Russ is probably going, what? Probably Mike's going, what is he talking about?
No. Hey, I used to go get those white Nikes for about $12 back in the day. I bought those damn things, and as soon as they got scuffed up, I threw them away because I liked white shoes.
We used to call them Bobos growing up.
Yo,
Puma Clydes, baby, blue
Puma Clydes. I still have a pair of those. I do. I don't break it out very often.
On that note. For Anthony Mangione, for Jan Levine, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.